Hi there, I'm Donna, and I want to tell you about my creep boss who only promoted beautiful girls. To teach him a lesson, I changed my entire look. But before anything else, don't forget to subscribe, give this video a thumbs up, and hit that notification bell icon to keep updated on all new uploads and show your support for me. At first, I thought bagging a spot at Matt's firm was the peak of my career. Every one of my friends from school was jealous of me when they heard the news. I was ecstatic when HR handed me my official access badge. Silly thing, I know, but it meant a lot to me. I was finally in the same building as some of the greats. I thought I was playing the big league. Matt was the one professor everyone looked up to back in college, and we all spent 4 years trying to get his approval and fighting for an internship he only gave out to the best of the best. When he offered me a permanent job halfway through my internship, I thought I'd made it. Turned out, he only wanted to use me for my talents. Not once in the 4 years that I'd worked for him did he even give me any credit. Every single time I would think I'd be up for a promotion, someone else would get it. Someone new, someone tall, someone beautiful. Yeah, sure, advertising is all about the message, and the message is always sweeter when wrapped in a gorgeous package. But I was great at what I did, and I worked hard, for long hours. Would it have killed them to give me what I'd worked so hard for? 4 years later, I was still in the same position I was hired for a while. Pretty skeleton-looking chicks who'd barely even gotten out of their probationary period got moved up to management positions. It infuriated me, but at the same time, I had no chips to bargain with. I was neither beautiful or shameless enough to flirt my way to the top. One day, I was finally given lead on a project. I barely got any sleep the night before for the excitement I felt. It was my turn. I was gonna shine so much. I was gonna show them. I was gonna close that deal so hard they'd be singing my praises for days. I walked into the office that morning as if I was walking on air. I was untouchable. From the moment I left the house to the second I sat down on my seat at the boardroom, nothing in my day was out of place. I knew nothing could go wrong, until everything did. The room was filled with all the girls Matt promoted before me. I heard them sniggering. They didn't even try to do it behind my back. They shot me mocking looks, and they looked down on me through their upturned, surgically enhanced noses. And then they whispered among themselves. They were looking at me as if I didn't belong there. Well, I thought that was about to change. That day, I was determined to prove them that I belonged there, more than any of them ever did. Then Matt walked in. His nose was buried in his mountain of emails for the day that he barely even noticed anyone. Least of all, me. But when he finally looked up and saw me sitting there, his face twisted with confusion. And then he asked me, "Sorry, Donna, remind me why you're here?" I was taken aback. Why wouldn't I be there? It was my pitch meeting, wasn't it? Matt looked up from his emails again. "Were you not told? We're going with someone else for the pitch meeting." And then, as if having to deliver me the news that was the least interesting thing in the world to him at the moment, he turned to swiping through his emails without so much as another look at me. Just then, a model of a woman strode into the room. Her hair blew in the air and her dress clung onto the right places. Even her feet looked perfect. And then I noticed her makeup. She was wearing my client's products. Was she the one who they replaced me with? Of course it was another pretty girl. I wanted to fight for myself. I put in a lot of work for that presentation. And so I protested. But I stayed up all night on this. What work does she have for the clients? Did she just expect she would walk in here without any preparation? "Yes," answered the unknown girl with all the confidence in the world. For a second, I envied her blind certainty. "Wow, okay," I said. But then Matt agreed with the new girl. "She's wearing the client's product and is looking exceptionally hot in it. That's all they'll need to see." "What? Did you think I'd let that face of yours be the first thing new clients see? We'd go bankrupt in a week." Then they all laughed. I turned a bright shade of red and ran right off. I didn't go back to work that day, nor did I go back the next day. I had locked myself up at home for a few days, but they still continued to send me work that wasn't even mine. Matt even left me a voice message telling me that he knows I'd been doing work from home, and that he thinks it's a good idea. Honestly, it's much better for everyone if you did your work at home. I don't know why I didn't think of that before, but I'm so glad you came up with it. I just don't think it's good for office morale to have you be in the building, moping around and looking like you do. Then he hung up the phone. That was the only credit he ever gave me, the only compliment he paid me, and it was immediately followed by a stinging criticism of how I looked. I screamed at Matt's name on the phone. I'm sorry if I don't wear a kilo of makeup. I'm sorry if I have to wear thick prescription glasses. I'm sorry if I have braces and permanent stress expression on my face. I was too busy doing everyone else's work while you keep collecting pretty face slackers. That was probably the moment when everything changed for me. I was done being the meek little mouse that I was, always happy to be of service and just trying not to get noticed as I went about my way. I was done being overlooked. I was done with being pushed aside for someone who didn't know half the things I knew how to do. I was done overlooking myself. So, I threw all the work the office had sent me in the trash. That day, I was going shopping. Card swipe after card swipe, I went through the best stores in town. I sat for 5 whole hours in the fanciest salon, getting hair treatments, a manicure, and just talking smack about the crap people at work. By the time the stores were closing, I went home with a car's worth of dresses, makeup, and shoes. I spent all night YouTubing beauty tips. I learned how to apply makeup. It was really much like painting, and I was very good at that. By the time I went to sleep, I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I woke up determined and confident the next day. I did my hair the way the girls at the salon taught me to. I looked at the classy black dress I laid out the night before. You can do this, I told myself. I slipped into my new black Louboutins, and then I gave myself one last touch of sophistication, a classic red lipstick. With one last look in the mirror, I turned and admired my handiwork. I could stop traffic if I wanted to. And that was exactly the effect I created as I walked into our offices that day. The receptionist, who always tried her level best not to make eye contact with me, stared at me shamelessly from head to toe. I bet none of those people knew they were looking at the plain, mousy Donna. I have an appointment with Matt Frobisher, I said. I was afraid she might recognize my voice, but that wasn't likely. She barely gave me a glance on a daily basis. The only time I ever saw Nicola, the receptionist, greet me with a smile. "Of course," she said. "Oh, would you like a sparkling water?" She offered me a chilled bottle. "No, thanks," I said. And as I turned to head over to Matt's office, Nicola must have wondered how I knew where it was. But Nicola was more inept at her job than I thought. She didn't even check whether I really had an appointment. Neither did she verify my identity. As I walked towards Matt's door, she called out for me. "Matt's office is right down this hall, the last door on the left. Oh, and you must give the number of whoever did your hair." I turned on my highly expensive heels and winked at her. "Of course, babe," I said, as fake as I could. The walk to Matt's door was like a scene from the movies. The whole office stared at me. My hair blew behind me as if someone had brought an industrial fan and pointed it right at me. Men stared slack-jawed and drooling. Women wrinkled their perfectly Botoxed lips in envy. And although I hurried to Matt's office because my feet, which were not used to heels, were killing me, it still felt like I was walking in slow motion. I opened Matt's doors without even knocking. He turned in his swivel chair, almost sinister-like. But when he saw the vision that stood in his doorway, his annoyed expression softened in a millisecond and turned to a wide smile. He stood and gestured to his chair. Hi there. Matt Frobisher at your service. What can I do for you, Miss, he said. "Donita," I said, only half lying. I sat and my feet thanked me, but I never let on that I was in pain the whole time. I simply smiled right at Matt, proudly displaying my newly whitened, braceless teeth. "I'm here for a job," I said. "I heard you were looking for an account manager." I passed him the proposals for the makeup company I'd worked on the week before. Since nobody got to see it, I might as well put it to good use. Matt didn't really care. I knew he was going to hire me for one reason and one reason alone. "You're in luck. We just landed a big cosmetics company not a week ago, and we are indeed looking for someone to take point on that account. How soon can you start?" he said. "Now would be great," I answered, with the sweetest smile I could manage. Matt stood and shook my hand. "Welcome to Frobishers & Co. Can I take you to HR to process your documents? They can give you a temporary pass before you—" I cut Matt off. I was too excited. I wanted to see his face when he realized. So I took out my company ID and flashed it in front of him. "No worries," I said. "I already work here." I was not disappointed. I snapped a pic with my phone. I used that face he made that day as my wallpaper. It reminds me of what I'm capable of. It reminds him not to underestimate me again.